For those who are unfamiliar, there's a quarterly tournament series called the Splat World Cup, or as it has been translated before, the Splat World Championships. It's an invitational run by Japanese tournament organizers, where they choose a certain number of teams to compete from all of the more prominent Splatoon-playing regions of the world. It's one of our best opportunities to see how top-level Western players stack up against players from Japan, as it's more frequent than the Nintendo Championships and more aligned with our conventional idea of competitive play. This way, instead of having to see the comps Japanese teams are running stacked up against other Japanese team comps from the VODs that we can look at, we get a more direct comparison between the Western understanding of the game and Japanese ideas, because teams from both traditions are forced to adapt to and counterplay each other. It's a regular tournament series, but this season had a lot of unprecedented changes to its format, as well as unprecedented results. Firstly, regarding the format, up until now, the organizers have tended to invite 8 teams total, 4 from Japan, 2 from NA, and 2 from Europe. The only exception was this summer, when one of the slots reserved for a 4th Japanese team went to an Australian team instead that had been getting good results. But this time, there were 10 teams total, 3 from Japan, 4 from North America, 2 from Europe that ended up having to drop, so there were no European representatives at all, and then 2 teams from a hybrid region that lumps parts of Asia in with Oceania, and 1 from South America. This is a really interesting change, which may mean that something about the philosophy for the event has shifted. Maybe they're interested in giving opportunities to regions that have been active but have had fewer chances to compete internationally. Or maybe they were just scrambling to make sure they had all the slots filled when neither of the EU teams they invited were available. In any event, it seems pretty clear just from the format and the seeding of previous events that up until this point the event was very deliberately structured to bring about as much competition specifically between Western teams and Japanese teams. The number of teams chosen per region was always even between Japan and the combination of NA and EU, and the seeding was always set up such that round 1 was between a Japanese team and a Western team. Another detail that has always been the case until now is that the events have been single elimination brackets. This time was the first time they've used a double elimination format instead. As a viewer and an analyst, I'm very happy with that particular change, though I'd also understand if the tournament being long makes it more difficult for some participants to enter, since some of them are needing to be awake at weird hours to account for the time zone differences. It's probably a wise decision for competitive integrity's sake in this case, given that the bracket was no longer a power of 2, and so buys were involved. More opportunities to progress in the tournament means fewer fluke losses, and less volatility in the results when you compare them to what you would expect to happen. It also makes it less likely that you dodge difficult opponents and get an easier bracket. I'm sure there's more I could learn if I understood Japanese, but this bald eagle-loving, flag-coat-abiding American citizen only ever learned English and maybe enough German to pass a preschool entrance exam, so I'm out of luck there. In any case, the results are also a huge talking point for this event. For the year and a half that the event has been running, a Japanese team has always won. In fact, up until this point, the top Western teams have never even made it to the finals. They've always gone out in 3rd place or lower. This time, though, FT Win and Jackpot, both NA teams, were in both winners' finals and grand finals, claiming the top 2 spots in the tournament decisively. I wish I had some easy summary to share of exactly why NA is doing better now. What epiphany they've had that's brought them this far. That'd be great thumbnail material, but having spent a couple hours looking through the footage, I have a few hunches, but nothing's jumping out at me right away. I know that Jackpot in particular, and probably by extension other top teams who scrim with them all the time and would stand to benefit from any connections they make, have been playing a lot more scrims with top Japanese teams to try and close the gap. The metagame right now is very conducive to fast-paced, intuition-based, scrappy fighting on your favorite, most mechanically practiced weapon, which is something that probably favors the West a little bit more than usual. Western players have, with some noteworthy exceptions of course, tended to have a slight mechanical advantage overall in the kind of macho 1v1 me bro scenarios that aren't really the most important part of the game. It hasn't been enough to make up for the Japanese team's better game planning, but with the state of the game being what it is right now, it may be doing more work for them than it has before. Several of Jackpot and FT Win's matches against Japanese teams were decided by last-second hero plays on the objective, the kind of fights that are entirely decided by single 1v1s being executed better. These are really vague ideas, and I wouldn't put a lot of stock in them, but that's the best that I can offer right now as a hypothesis. I asked Ren, Jackpot's coach, what he thought, and he had this to say. I can't really say there's anything in particular. I think especially in the last 6 months or so, the gap has been steadily closing in general, at least in NA, but I think this meta has also forced a level of flexibility and adaptability that we just haven't seen in the game before, probably even the series itself to a large extent. You really can just choose comfort picks or per-map mode picks that feel good to play, with your only restraint being a cooler weapon of some kind. I think in general, the meta favors team play way more than any sort of specific special or weapon or whatever, so the teams with stronger team play and adaptability shine even harder than they used to. From my point of view, there aren't really any weapons being run in either region that are surprising, nor are there combinations I'm not really expecting to be effective that prove to be. There's a comp, God's Hells, the number 2 seed from Japan, ran against Jackpot that I'm really not a fan of, but in terms of exactly what's going better than usual for NA in the general case, I'd need more hours than I'll have today to go over it and really dig in. I'll be doing a more thorough job on Monday on stream starting at around 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, huge congratulations to both Jackpot and FT Win for their performances, because both of those teams should be immensely proud of how well they stood up to these top Japanese teams. I consider events like these to give more meaningful results than a Nintendo World Championship event, due to the way Nintendo structures those. That said, that event is undeniably more prestigious, given its wider reach to the general public. And the event in January of 2024 could be a moment where the West gets to show off the progress they've made since the last such event we saw in 2019. Back then, if you were making bets, you put all your money on Dynamon's team and called it a day. Now, there's some genuine uncertainty. That event is scheduled for January 20th through 21st during Nintendo Live in Tokyo, which, given the timing, I would think would take place on the patch that's coming out less than a week from now. Jackpot is qualified out of North America, Kaiser out of Europe, and Greasy Goblins out of Oceania, with 3 other teams yet to be decided. Best of luck to you guys. You have the potential to do something big here.